Hello, everybody. We haven't live streamed in ages, so welcome back to streaming. Let's go. We're back on the live. Can already see people have already been chiming in pre-stream about Brian's contract extension. So I'll wait till you guys all hop in here, and then we're just gonna get straight into it. Talking about some of the details and all of that good stuff. Everybody, first and foremost, let me know if you're in the stream. How's everyone doing? Let's get started. Already, we already got Angie. Welcome to the stream. Let me change this up quickly. Da, 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 da. Nah, that's fine. You are in. You're locked in. Okay, let's just get started. So let's first talk about this. Brian Schmetzer, as we all know, his contract was going to be up at the end of this season. Oh, yeah. Before we fully get started, by the way, everyone, can you let me know if audio sounds good? I think it should, but just in case if it doesn't, let me know ASAP. So let's now officially get started. So Brian's contract was going to be up at the end of this season, and a lot of people were curious. Was he going to stay? Were we going to move on? We had such a bad start to the season. Then he saved the season. And before our playoff match against the Houston Dynamo, which, as we all can see right next to me, the Sounders officially announced Brian Schmetzer, his contract was renewed. Inside scoop for you all, I knew about this 2 days ago. Unfortunately, I couldn't post about it because it was from a trusted source of mine. And so I've already kind of mentally prepared for this. It wasn't any like massive mind-blowing surprise. I knew about it. And so when it was announced, I was like, okay, so now it gets announced. I just didn't know when it would be announced. I didn't think it was going to happen now. I thought it was going to happen once like the season officially closed up post playoffs. But Schmetzer has been renewed. And to what I am heard and to my knowledge, it's a 2-year deal. So it's till 2026. If there was different info you guys saw from like the reputable reporters, let me know during the live stream or in post production in the comments. When it comes to, do you guys want me to start with the positives or the negatives? I think it'd just be best to start off the stream on a positive note. Let's first talk about the positives on this news, because they're like, as much as for the majority, I would say a big pie of it is like 70% people are in the Brian in, like they are totally happy about this. But there is like that 30% where they're like, I wasn't sure this was the right move. And so now that we're here, obviously there's two sides. On my opinion, I don't think either side of the argument's bad. As we all remember, I think it was 5 months ago. You guys are gonna have to look on the channel. I did my Brian, his time is up with the Sounders. It was when we lost to Sporting Kansas City. We were one of the bottom teams. And I was just like, you know what? I think it is time to say bye. And obviously things have changed since then. And I don't think it's a bad thing that, like, if you were like Brian out, you were kind of done with the guy. And then now you're like, oh no, actually he changed. Like, opinions are okay. I don't know why there's this weird sense that you're not entitled to an opinion. You're more than welcome to have an opinion. And if your opinion changes, that's the point of an opinion. And you learn and you grow. And I don't know why that can be a bad thing. And obviously, I even said it in the last video after the Portland game. I said, I think he's definitely earned himself at least maybe one more opportunity. And I was like, he deserves that one more chance, in my opinion, from what he was able to do this season, the turnaround. Does that mean I'm on my knees like, oh, Brian is back? He's the GOAT. He's like his old self, our 2019 team? No, not 100%. And obviously get into that. And I see you guys are all in the live. I just haven't pinned any yet. We'll get into that at the end, but I am reading all your guys' comments. Low key, we're going for our next head coach, Brad Evans. Poor timing, Schmetzer in. Jack, big shout out to you. Love that you're always in the streams. I know, guys, we're gonna also be doing watch along for all the matches against the Dynamo, all playoff games I'm doing watch alongs for. So the lives are back. The lives are back, and I'm super pumped about it. I like doing live streaming. Just haven't had the time, man. Working 2 jobs now. I'm trying to make that money. And yeah, so I don't have a poop ton of time anymore, but I'm super happy to be back making content. I'm trying to anyway. So we're gonna say probably let's start with the positive. So we'll get started with that. Yes, after the game, after the game, after this, it will be posted as a video. You posting this vid. Yeah, this will be up as a video. Yes, Angie, after this, literally, okay, total side note. After this live stream, I will be recording and uploading first thing tomorrow morning my playoff predictions. Can I go 100% 2 years in a row? We'll find out. But yes, I'll be posting. I know a lot of people might want to be cheating off mine after last year's. A lot of people have messaged me. It will be up first thing tomorrow morning as well. Later on in the day, it will be posted. Yes, I was watching that game as well. We can get into all that at the end. Everyone save your questions. Everyone give me your thoughts, and we'll get all of that at the end. You can still always chime in. I'm going to read what you guys say as I go on. So let's first talk about the positives with Brian being rehired. I think number one, and as I already mentioned, he was able to turn around this season, which what does that show us? That he at least still has that. He didn't lose the dressing room as people would say if a coach was about to get sacked. And honestly, in my opinion, I thought maybe he was a little bit, but he didn't lose the dressing room. He was able to ride the ship and improve and able to like basically keep us afloat, stabilize the situation, which that shows good qualities of a coach. So there you go. That's positive one. Another thing is Brian obviously has the pedigree. I mean, everyone waxes lyrical about it. Brian has won X, Y, and Z with us. He's a very high pedigree coach. And I think that is, of course, always important to have a coach that has been there, done that, has the resume to do that. Because realistically, there isn't that many coaches with Brian Schmetzer's pedigree. On the contrary, though, to play devil's advocate, the pedigree part, like, in recent years compared to previously, like, I don't think he as much as the big manager he once was. Like, we don't play as well in big games like we once used to with Brian. But again, we'll get into that and the negatives. But he's a coach with a lot of pedigree. He's a coach that has been here for a while. He knows the system. He knows how to run this team. He knows the organization. He knows how this works. So there's no like growing pains. And again, I'm talking about this as if we were going to hire a coach. So it's like the pros of us keeping Brian, the cons of us not looking to maybe get a new coach. So those would be my 3 big things. 1, he was able to show he's still got it. 2, he's been here, like he has the resume. He's a very successful coach, not only for the Sounders, but in MLS. Arguably, in my opinion, I think I saw this, someone post this, and I actually totally agree with it. He's like the Sir Alex Ferguson of MLS coaches. Like, he honestly is. He's been here. He's going to be here for a decade unless we just shit absolutely hits the fan. He's going to be here for a decade as a head coach. He's obviously was our assistant coach for a while. No, Brad Evans is not going to be our next head coach. I can't see that happening. This is an interesting point. Wenger had the pedigree at Arsenal, but we all know what happened. This is a very good point, actually, see? But I'll keep continuing with my tangent, but that's actually a very good point. Oh, God, I kind of lost my train of thought. Okay, sorry. So he has that pedigree, and, you know, he's done it for a while. And like Sir Alex Ferguson, like he has the tenure and all that. So positive things. I'm talking about the positive things with Sir Alex Ferguson as well. Then there's no like growing pains. There's no like, oh, new coach needs to settle in, new tactics, players need to adjust. Yeah. There's none of that. So these are the 3 big positives. And another thing I want to emphasize is I am honestly at this point, I'm not really in the Brian in and Brian. I'm honestly at a neutral stance. I'm not Brian in and I'm not Brian out. I know 5 months ago I said I was Brian out. I'm just in the middle now. I don't know. I think both sides of the argument are totally okay. And I don't want this to, and I don't know why this is a thing where, well, you see it in the post right now, and we'll get into some of the comments on the post. why it is bad if you are Brian out, like you're ostracized for it. I don't think that honestly that argument is super invalid. Uh, I don't know why you have to be ostracized. You're like a sheep for not you're like a black sheep for thinking, "Oh, Brian's maybe passing and stuff." I think again, I think it's fine if you're Brian. I think it's fine if you're Brian out. There's nothing wrong with either side of the argument. Both sides of the argument are 100% valid. But it's like a lot of fans are getting completely like straight up just crucified in comments whenever they express their opinion like, "Oh, we really kept Brian. I really thought this was going to be the end." Because realistically, part of me even thinks at the end of the season was the right time to end this project. Because something I always will emphasize, and I think something that fans have a gripe with what happened with Ladera, what is happening with Rui Diaz, and it's something I've talked about now for 2 years now, is it's the Batman quote, you know? Either you die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. And we saw that a little bit with Ladero, how things ended a bit sour there. We're definitely seeing it with Rui Diaz, and I feel so bad about it. Like I said, like a year and a half, 2 years ago, like we need to let go of Raul before things go really sour. And Raul's like the prime definition of it. Like things have gone so sour with Raul Ruiz Diaz, so sour. And I don't want that to be the case with Brian because we all know that Brian's is iconic. I mean, we've only ever had two coaches. He's not really iconic as a coach, but as a figure in Seattle soccer history. And I don't want things that end like how we're seeing with Rui Diaz, because in a lot of people's eyes, Rui Diaz is the greatest striker we've had in Sounders history. And I totally can understand that argument, and how things are ending taints that so much, in my opinion. It ends such a it ends things on a sour note. And as well, too, Siggy Schmidt, the other coach we used to have, had pretty much that same form back in 2016 like we had with Brian. And the thing is too, again, a lot of the audience now with Sounders fans is it's a lot more younger. Most people became fans post 2016. I'm someone that became a fan in 2012, so I got a sample size at least of what life was like pre-Brian with Siggy. And Siggy had a lot of pedigree. I'd argue pretty close to the same pedigree Brian has now. I would say obviously Brian has a little bit more, but I mean, I believe Siggy won 2 MLS Cups, one with the Galaxy, one with the Crew, won a supporter shield with us, won countless open. Like, he had a lot of pedigree in MLS, but he got sacked, and I don't think there was as much empathy like there is in this much shielding like we had with Brian. Like, it's not all Brian's fault, this and that. And I'd argue Brian had a better team than Siggy did back in 2016. And like one of the big arguments that people make is, again, this is all conversational, people. You guys can all chime in on this like during the live right now or post. This is all conversational. It is, as I said, I think our team now is way better than the team we had in 2016. And we just lost our best player in Obafemi Martins. And we were basically, I think, only playing with one DP. I think Clint was our only DP at the time. I could be wrong. We probably had two, but it's one or two DPs, one superstar. Like, granted, Brian only had one superstar actually playing in Rusnak this year. He was missing all of his DPs. And so this is just another point I want to make in the argument. MLS is so different now. I really feel like the Sounders have fallen behind. Yes, and of course, I guess we'll transition into that point. So the negatives, Jack is saying MLS, it is a lot different too. And I think that's a good point is I think Brian was perfect for the era of MLS we were in at that time. Like, dude, MLS was different gravy back in 2013, 14, 15. I truly think the last prime years of MLS was back in like 2016, 17. We're in that era. That was prime MLS. And I think the league has changed a lot. It really has evolved a lot more. And speaking of Rusnak, should we re-sign him? In my opinion, no. But that's going to be that's one of my biggest project videos planned on the channel. It's going to be called My Ideal Sounders Transfer Window. That's going to be a huge there's a skit involved in it. As of now, I hope I will have the time to make that skit. There's a whole skit, whole project. I already have the graphics done for it. I'm so pumped for that video. That's going to be probably one of my most longest, difficultest videos I'm ever going to get. But, and if you don't, curtail those players, they're just keep being lazy. Okay. Oh, I think Brad Evans was saying, okay, we're really talking about Brad Evans. No, I wouldn't give Raul any more time. Prime MLS 2013. Those are the years, Jack. You're so on point with that. Prime MLS was back in 2013. But back to what I was saying. So now let's move on to the negatives. So I would say -1 is I think we started to see the creaks with Brian. I think we saw in the back half of 2020, so last season, 2023, the back half of that season. And I think in the beginning of this season. So you could consider that like a whole season. End of 2023. So basically the European calendar, like football calendar. End of 2023, beginning of 2024. Some of the most atrocious football I've ever seen us play. Atrocious. Really bad. Really, really bad. So obviously we were terrible to start this season. With Brian too, I think another thing that fans were not necessarily happy about is kind of his stubbornness with player personnel and his starting lineups. He always persists with the same guys regardless of who we're playing. He's not willing to change it up really. Like, for example, I think LAFC is a good prime example. We lost to them 4 times this season. I'd actually would love to put it up, but obviously it's not the topic at hand here. When you look at all 4 lineups we put out against LAFC this season, there might be a good chance we'll play them again for a 5th time. All the lineups were pretty much the exact same. And we didn't score a single goal from open play. And so what does that show you? Maybe play different attackers in those games. But in Brian fashion, he played the same attackers, hoping for a different result. And so that leads me to my next point is compared to before. So when you think about prime Brian Schmetzer, 2016, 17, 18, 19, 20. I think 20 was truly the last prime MLS year with Brian Schmetzer. Regardless of how we played throughout the regular season, good, bad, mediocre, didn't matter. Everyone always called us starting in 2016. This became a trend. We weren't this type of team, but starting in 2016, we became like the second half team. We always started slow. We're good at the end, and we would play really well in the playoffs. We'd be a team to reckon with in the playoffs. But since 2021, in my opinion, since that end of the season in 2021, we have not been a big in MLS. Obviously, there's CCL, but I'm just talking MLS. Uh, we don't really play well in the big games. I think Brian has lost that touch. Yes, we are either, as I said, good, bad, mediocre going into playoffs. But then when the big games hit in the playoffs, I don't know if you guys get that same sense. We're not a big team. We don't play well in the big games. And that was kind of like Brian's bread and butter, in my opinion. Whenever we would face off against any team back in that pre-2020 era, I was always like, we have a chance. I don't care if we're good, bad, or shit. I used to have that kind of optimism. But now we go into these big games. I'm like, yeah, we're screwed because we don't have. I feel like we always get outplayed. Our team is not the team it once was. The personnel, the tactics, the style of play, and it goes back to your point, Jack. MLS has evolved, and I feel like we haven't really evolved that much. We've always played it safe, and I think that could as well go to the positives about Brian is he's a safe bet. And I don't mind us playing the safe bet, the comfortable pick. Because if you succeed, good. If you fail, you went with the safe bet. There isn't much risk to be involved. I think if you guys know me, I'm a guy that likes change. I'm a guy who likes trying to innovate, trying to do better, trying to make change. Yes, in the beginning it won't be easy, and there will be growing pains, but change could be a good opportunity for more. We could level up. It won't be pretty in the beginning, and I think this is just a overall life lesson. Change is difficult. Change is hard to accept. Change is not easy. And with reappointing Brian, I think it was a safe pick. 100%. I think is a really, really safe pick. And I wouldn't have mind seeing that change. I think how things, how Bryant ended this season, however things go, I don't think we'll win MLS Cup. I don't think anyone alive thinks we'll win MLS Cup. And like Inter Miami, Columbus, LAFC, LA Galaxy, those are the teams that cut above us. I felt it was the right time to say our goodbyes. I thought. I'm not saying I'm Brian in, Brian out, but in regards to the Brian out crowd, I felt it was the right time to, let the passing of the torch, let things end on the right note. I felt maybe at the end of the season was not a bad shout. But the thing is, I think the biggest talking point I want to to bring up. So, my biggest talking point is why make this announcement now? Why put pen on paper now? Isn't it we're going into our first playoff game. The season isn't even over yet. And we've already renewed Brian without even finding out. Can Brian still have that magic in the playoffs? Can he still be a guy to lead the Sounders to deep MLS Cup playoff runs? And I think if, for example, we didn't officially put pen on paper now, would that maybe have motivated the players, Brian, to be like, "Hey, my contract is still uncertain." And for the players, "Hey, I don't know if Brian's still gonna be here or if he is gonna be here, so I have to show up in the playoffs because we might have a new head coach, and he sees that I showed up in the big games in the playoffs, he would wanna keep me." But us signing Brian so early before our first playoff game, almost in my opinion, adds complacency. That's my opinion. I know a lot of people will maybe argue, no, this is a good thing because now you have certainty with the team. Yes, if you sign them early on in the off season, like I can agree with that. If like season ended, the off season began, you wanted to tie up your new head coach or renew Brian early on, so there's less uncertainty going into the season. That's fine. But before your first playoff game, you want to make this big move going into, in my opinion, a make it or break it season next year. I think that's very questionable. And it makes me scratch my head, think like, why now? This is such a weird time to make this announcement, make this appointment, because you don't know how we're going to do in the playoffs. Brian, if we didn't, re-sign him or he was uncertain about what his future was, it would maybe help motivate and be like, I have to prove a point here. I have to prove to the front office, to the fans, we need to do well in the playoffs. And same with these players. There's that uncertainty of we're fighting for our jobs to stay at the Sounders, be it with Brian possibly, or be it with the new head coach. This is the time that we need to show up because whoever's the new head coach is going to see these moments, these big game moments. We have to perform. But if you make this before the first big playoff game, then it's like Brian knows his job's safe. So even if we crash out against Houston, I'm still going to be the coach next year. Some of these players, well, I'm one of Brian's favorites. Brian loves me. So like win or lose, I'll still be okay. It doesn't matter. My position is safe with the team. That is a big thing issue I have with this. It's not Brian in, Brian out. Why did the club decide to announce this, put pen on paper, put on this contract renewal before the first playoff game, not even in the offseason? That's so weird to me. You don't see this very often before the biggest part of your season. You're like, you know what? Let's renew Brian. Let's announce it. That's why when I got that info of like earlier this week that it's very likely Brian was going to renew for about a 2-year deal, I was like, okay, shit. Well, I'm curious, when will this be announced? I was assuming it was going to be during the offseason. I didn't think it was going to happen within less than a week of me finding out about it too. I was like, what? We're already making the announcement now? I don't know if you guys feel the same way. Jack said, yeah, why now before the playoff? That's the thing is that's what I'm so surprised about is, don't you want the team to be hungry going into playoffs with uncertainty? I think sometimes that's where you see the best out of teams. Think about it. When we won MLS Cup 2016, before the playoffs started, we didn't sign Brian as the official head coach. He was still the interim head coach going into 2016, and we rewarded him by winning MLS Cup to give him the head coaching role. Not before, because he needs to earn it. And so that's kind of just my take on the whole thing, like I don't know, same thing, announcing the offseason signings were exhausting, could just be bad timing. Wow, yeah, maybe it shows I don't know, I just feel like and maybe this stems with Craig, the mediocrity, the safety, the not taking any risks. this could stem with him. I'm not totally sure if Brian's contract renewal does come down to Craig too in the front office. I think it most likely does, but I don't obviously know the ins and outs, how all that works. But it could stem from that, just that playing it safe. The last 3 years, you know what the definition of the Sounders have been is playing it safe, not taking any risks, not willing to make any change, just being okay with being okay. You guys are gonna have to let me know if you agree or disagree with me on that. Looking at some of the comments, let's go on to comments as well. Um, if you guys have any questions too while I'm reading through these comments, let me know. Let me see if I can zoom in on. No, I cannot zoom in on the post. Shoot. Well, I'll just have to read. You guys are gonna have to listen. Drop me your guys' comments too on the stream. I'm gonna start answering them. It could be related to Brian. It could be related to the team. As well, if you guys are wondering some topics, obviously, as I said, I'm planning to do watch-alongs for both the games against every playoff game. As of now, it's for the 2 guaranteed games against Houston. I'm planning to do that video I just mentioned. My ideal summer transfer, players I want in, players I want out. So positions we need to sign and which players need to be sold. That's going to be another one. And what happened? What went wrong with Liao Chu? That's another one of the videos I want to do. And then I have one really special one. Big project. Big, 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 big. Bigger than when we did the video with Danny Leyva and Dylan Tevez. Even bigger than that. Me missing penalties and everything. Way bigger than that. Those are the 3 big videos. My ideal summer transfer window. What went wrong with Liao Chu? And the big, big project. I don't want to tell you guys it because it's huge. It's a long ways in the works, but I'm so pumped about it. So pumped about it. Okay. So looking at some of the comments. So the top one is lots of bad takes in the comments, which I don't think there's any good or bad takes in my opinion. Schmetzer has taken the team with basically one DP, not basically, just one DP, and made it into a fourth place in the conference, playing as good as just about anyone over the back half of the season. That's without a single reinforcement during the summer window. Dude should be in the running for coach of the year. Okay. I have seen no, there's actually more. I got a lot of inside information. A lot of you don't know this. I have a lot of mutual friends with Liao Chu. It is not that. The hint that I can give you all is it has to do with his deal that a lot of people didn't think I was fabricating. The deal that happened with Flamengo. It has a lot to do with that and what went wrong at that point. And I'll leave it at that. It has nothing to do with Brian's tactics, this and that. It has to do with that transfer falling apart. That was legit. Flamengo were in for Liao Chu. And obviously I'll talk about more with the information that I've received about that. So, okay, first topic. A lot of people have talked about Brian Schmetzer coach of the year. I kind of like the shout. Okay, I want to also see who were named as the coaches of the year. MLS. They announced the finalists. Let me just quickly look. Because I forget. All right, bang. Okay, here you go. So Tata Martino, Wilfred Nancy, Chris Armas. Only person I think that could have pipped, that we could have kicked out for Brian is maybe Chris Armas. But my goodness, Colorado Rapids were a horrendously down bad team. So it's like Chris Armas has done a really, really good job with a team that was, I think, one of the worst teams last year in MLS. So maybe he pips Chris Armas. But to the main point here is that I want to bring up, we'll use this photo this time. I actually quite like this one. Is does Brian Schmetzer deserve or should have been in the coach of the year nominations? Reality is no. In this modern era of MLS, no. The thing is I think Sounders fans can really be bullish. So going into this season, most people thought we would be good. Like we would be just about where we finished. Reality is I think most people would have predicted the Sounders to be a 1 to 5th place seeded team. I mean, all of the MLS pundits predicted us to finish 1 through 3rd or maybe 4th, 1 through 3. and we finished 4th. So it's like, so your expectations were we would be a top 3 seeded team. We started off the season really badly. He saved, like, we were able to bounce back, but we basically finished in around the areas you expected us, a little less, but expect us to finish. Does that make him a coach of the year? Not necessarily, in my opinion. Do I think Brian deserved to be in the pool of coaches? Sure, 100%. But in the reality in MLS is you need to be a coach coaching a big team, winning big games, being candidates and finalists in cup competitions, being the favorites going into tournaments. We're just not that. We just weren't that. So realistically, I don't think Brian should be a coach of the year. I understand his turnaround. And I mentioned in the last video, he was able to uh, make lemonade out of lemons. He was able to juice out some of the best out of some players that, like, in my opinion, Paul Rothrock, I don't think he's that great of a player, but Brian Schmetzer made him look like God's given gift. Like think about it. Paul Rothrock was kind of an MLS journeyman at 25 years old, was at TFC2 playing for Tacoma, then moved to Tacoma Defiance and made him look like a pretty decent winger. That's a prime example, in my opinion. And so it's like he did a really good job with certain personnel. I just don't think he's a coach of the year nomination. I just can't. I understand his turnaround, but I just can't think that he is. Next one is, wow, I'm surprised. I thought for sure this would be Brian's final year as a head coach, especially since the start of the season, which obviously this guy got absolutely flamed in the replies. Next talking point. There is nothing wrong with being on. I don't get this. Like, we're not Sounders fans, man. Just a PSA. It's okay if fans have differing opinions, like fans of the club have critical opinions about players. It's okay to criticize players that are not playing well or the coach that is not doing well or thinking it is time to move on. An opinion is okay. But people are just like, oh, if you think Jordan Morris is shit, fuck you. Oh, you think Brian shouldn't be the head coach? You're blind as a bat. You're so stupid. Like, what? Like, no. That is okay. I don't get that. That's something it's like both sides of the coins are I don't know if you guys ever heard the saying, like, there's your truth, uh yeah, or to change your opinion. Yeah, exactly. It's like there's one side of the story, there's your side of the story, and then there's the truth. There's one side of someone's argument or opinion, one side of someone's opinion, one side of another person's opinion, and then the truth. Like, it's okay if you see differing opinions. Like, if you think you're Brian in, Brian out, who cares? Who cares? Everyone takes it like Brian Schmetzer is your grandfather. Brian Schmetzer is not your grandfather. Like, you don't have to, chase to the top of the hill for him because someone said, I really think this was like, honestly, I don't even think this is a bad take. I even thought maybe this was going to be his last year. I didn't think it was likely, but like, it's not the end of the world. If you thought this was the time for it, his time is past. It's okay. But moving on, a lot of bad takes in the comments. Again, we continue. Schmetz has taken a team with basically one. This is like a regurgitation of the top comment. It made into a 4th place team in the conference, playing as good as just about anyone over the back half of the season. This is without single reinforcement over the summer. And see, this is my point of like, and this is my point of the point I have of this is where sorry, I keep stumbling on words. I'm super tired. It's been a long day. The point I'm making of this is, Brian taking the team from dog shit bottom of the table to a top half finish. I think that's what gave me that okayness and like, rewarding him with maybe a 1-year deal. This is the thing that I think is a little bit concerning is a multi-year deal. I would have personally for me in a perfect world, I would have given Brian Schmetzer, which it isn't realistic, but a 1-year contract extension. That's my take though. I think he earned himself at least a last chance. I think Brian has earned himself a last chance coming with new signings, new personnel, getting rid of players that are just not good enough anymore, a new set of rosters and tools and personnel he can use. And if at that point it fails, he only has 1 year left on his deal. So you don't have to pay out much if you have to sack him or just let him ride out that 1 year. But to make it a multi-year deal, that's where I'm like, well, there's the complacency, the little bit of the mediocrity settling in where it's like, were you that scared to make just a change or just, be willing to let things go with Brian, let the time pass, like that's where I'm like, I would have given him one more year. I think multi-year was a little bit, be it 2 or 3 years plus. Like that's where I'm like, I don't know if that was the right move. I think he's earned himself at least the 1 year extension. He's earned that. There's no question. He's earned it. But we've seen cracks in these recent couple of years with Brian that things might be slipping away. Things might be. But let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Let's get some new players finally in. Let's get a new set of tools for him to be able to use. And if still things are not working out, maybe it is time for us to, pass the torch on and start a new project for the Sounders. And maybe Brian's time is done. Oof, this is an interesting way to spell my name. I think we are soccer fans and understand losing isn't okay, but a lot of Sounders fans are American sports fans, which losing is okay. Oh, I didn't mention that, but sure, I think it's a good point. I think there are a lot of fans who aren't used to manager out movements or lots of player criticism because it isn't as big of a thing in American sports. Fans tend to be more, yes. I think this point is totally spot on. Ben says, true. 1 year and out would have been much better. I think so too. I think 1 year would have been the most ideal situation if you could. Thank God ownership doesn't look at social media. Did the most with very little work. Give the dude a lifetime contract. Well, that's a little bit of an extreme. So this is back to, again, one of my points I already made earlier on. Brian has done a lot for us. Winning MLS Cup 2016, winning MLS Cup 2019. We went to the final in 2020, went to the final in 2017. We won the CCL back in 2022. But recently in the last 3 years, or let's say recently in the last 2 years, you can just see the wheels are starting to fall off a little bit. We're seeing things can go really south with Brian. Things can go okay with Brian, but things aren't what it used to be. We don't win big games anymore in MLS. We don't make deep runs in playoffs. We actually even missed the playoffs under Brian. So it's like, I don't know how to word this, but it's like, see a little bit of the writing on the wall. Like, see when it is the right time to be okay with moving on too. Like, see both sides of it. Like I said, I think a perfect compromise. This is the perfect one. 1 year contract. 1 year. And announcing it after the season ends. Don't announce it before the playoffs. That's the big thing. Don't announce it before the playoffs. Announcing this contract extension before the playoffs is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Announce it after. In a perfect world, I would have given Brian a 1 year extension. See with a new set of tools and personnel that he was robbed of during this recent summer transfer window, what he can do with it. If it's still, we see, a horrible start to a season, or we still can't beat LAFC. We can't win these big games in US Open Cup semifinals and playoff conference finals, semifinals. Then at least he's only on a 1 year deal where you can sack him after 6 months or just let that 1 year deal happen. That's my opinion anyway. That's just my take. But here you go. This guy says the fans want someone new, which I think some fans wouldn't mind seeing that. Max Bredos, who's been on the channel before, says he's responded this year. Yes, to a degree, he has responded. Ah, man. Can't wait to see us lose against LAFC at home. I will say, man, like seeing Portland lose 4-0, 5-0 against the Whitecaps when just a week before we were only able to tie against them 1-1 at home, kind of made me gouge my eyes out. This is another totally side topic. I get it. We're clowning Portland for losing against, again, total side topic. I know we were clowning Portland for losing 5-0 against the Whitecaps. But I don't think we all remember couple days before, we literally tied against them 1-1. So how bad does it make us seem if we're tying against a team that just got pumped 5-0 at home? We tied against them 1-1. And let's say, worst case scenario, we lose against Houston or we get swept. See, that's why I didn't want to say anything. I didn't want to bring up a single post. It's embarrassing losing 5-0 home in the playoffs. Like, don't get me wrong, but I'm not going to count my chickens too soon. You don't know what's going to happen against Houston. So that's just my point. I'll go through a couple more comments. Someone said, bruh. Oh, hell no. See, there's like some people that aren't happy. Congrats, Brian. Yeah, so it's like mixed opinions, mixed opinions. And we can't forget. See, this is gonna be the final point I'm gonna make is next year. I've spoken about it millions and millions of times. I've pumped it into everyone's brains. Next year is the 2025 FIFA Club World Cup, the biggest moment in club history, in my opinion. The biggest moment, not only for the club but for Seattle fans going into the 2026 World Cup. The biggest moment in the club's history. I wouldn't have mind if we went a little bit ambitious as well. If we were ambitious and maybe went for a coach that had like a little bit of European experience and like for example, a Patrick Vieira. I'm not saying Patrick Vieira exactly, but that guy that has coached in Europe and has MLS experience or has just coached in Europe. Like, a pretty decently high level coach. Kind of like what Charlotte FC did with Steve Bruce. That I think that might not have been a bad shout. That's just another avenue I would have taken. I would have, I don't know. I think Jack can attest to this. Uh, I think Jack, I think you can attest to this I remember after 2022, it was when Wilfred Nancy was still the head coach of Montreal. And it was obviously after we won CCL. I said at the end of the season, we should have hired Wilfred Nancy. I don't know. I maybe said it on here or I said it on Goals TV. And I was all on the Wilfred Nancy hype train. I said we should get him in. This coach looks like the next big thing in MLS. And unfortunately, we stuck, not unfortunately, but unfortunately, Wilfred Nancy's not an option anymore. I think he's going to be with Columbus for a very long time. Like, they have their franchise coach right there. That guy's going to be there pretty much as long as Brian has been here. So it's like, so I felt maybe it was a good time to, look for like what Charlotte did. They started a new project. They brought in a coach that had really big experience across Europe and Steve Bruce going into the Club World Cup year. Who knows? I don't mind. Everyone was cool with us tanking our season in 2022 to win CCL. Like, everyone accepted that. I'm being dead serious. I don't mind if we have to cost like an 8th, 7th place finish if it means we make it out of the group in the 2025 FIFA Club World Cup. I think that is the biggest deal in club history. That's how serious I am about it. Some fans don't care. They think this is like a bogus, like, oh, this is just like sell jerseys. Like, this is just some ridiculous American sports fans mindset. But the Club World Cup, I think, is so huge for this club. I think it's so huge. And I wouldn't mind if we tried to go balls to the wall, tried to risk something. I don't mind Brian earning the shot at leading us in this. I think he earned a shot with the 2023 Club World Cup when we lost to Al Ali. I think he had a shot. He kind of fucked it up. So it's like, I didn't mind as well on the other side of the coin. We go for something like that because I think we have the pulling power to get someone like how could Charlotte get Steve Bruce? I'm not saying Steve Bruce is like the perfect coach. I know I see like with his tactics. I'm saying like like in regards to pedigree is what I mean. Not in regards to how he is as a coach, but his pedigree. I wouldn't have mind if we tried that. Like a real revamp. I don't think the issues going on with the club is sorry, Dean Smith. Fuck, I said Steve Bruce. Dean Smith, I'm sorry. I don't mind if we if if Brian had to go. But like in regards to, I don't think he's the biggest problem here. I don't think Brian was the biggest problem with everything that's going on, but I do really think it starts from top to bottom where like, say we change the coach. There's a good chance players like Morris, Rusnak, who are some of his favorites, Alex Roldan, Christian Roldan, like those guys would, there's a good chance half, some, all might have moved on. And like we really would have seen that change. Cause I think it does come down to Brian where it's like he's the one as well who can tell Craig, like, hey, I'm cool with keeping more. Like he's the one who's like, I'm cool with having Morris as my striker this season. So Craig's like, yeah, I won't worry too much about buying you a striker then. Like, I think it does have a correlation to a degree. I'm not saying he makes the signings. That's the ultimatum. Like he's the one who signs the players, deals with contracts and all that stuff. But I do think it does, these things do stem with each other. Like, I do think if you change Brian, I think there really would have been a bigger change with the team. And I think some fans were cool with that, some were not. And again, I can see both sides of the argument. I think it's more of a matter of what are we going to see during this offseason? I think if we saw, Brian gone, I think we might maybe have seen a huge, big revamp with the Sounders. I think my biggest issue with all of this is why announce him uh, before your first playoff game? Why make this happen before the playoffs even start? This is something you usually do at the end of the season when you weigh out all your options. I know a lot of people are like, oh, what do you mean weigh out all your options? Like Brian deserves it. Brian, like for what he did 5 years ago, 3 years ago. I'm talking about the here and now. That's just my point. I think C, you bring up a good point. Schmetzer is a big time yes man. I 100% could see that. Yes, and Craig Weibel is guilty of it most recently. Well, boys and girls, that's going to be the end of today's stream. I am going to record my playoff predictions right now. So wish me luck. Double recording as well. We'll have a preview out for the match against Houston. I haven't done a preview in ages. As I said, guys, I've been super duper busy. Working 2 jobs is not fun, but you got to do what you got to do. And I'm going to record the playoff preview. I think tomorrow or Saturday, going to record, my playoff predictions. I'm going to record that after this playoff preview. I'm going to be joined with Hector from Insert Name FC podcast. He also used to work for the Houston Dynamo, which is so cool. He was their kit man. So I'm super excited to do that preview with him. He's a super great character when it comes to talking football. He's not like a pundit or anything and whatnot. So yeah, everybody watching this post recording, I appreciate you guys. Everyone that's here in the live. I mean, it was a lot of fun. I love doing live streams. Let's get back to doing this again. And that all comes down to you guys coming in with the lives, subscribing to the channel, smashing the like button, going above and beyond, subscribing to us on Patreon, because that's what gives me the money to maybe one day I don't have to work 2 jobs. I could do this full time. These are things that help support the channel, supports improving my content, doing away days. Like these are the things that help out so much. All comes down to you guys. We've built this channel from nothing. This is not backed by the team. This is not supported by any official publication. This is just me, computer, my editing, my blood, sweat, and tears, and we're here. So smash the like button. Nonetheless, I appreciate you guys and happy to be back doing lives. And I hope you all have a lovely day.